In 2020, it was said that across the world, 619 million people experienced lower back pain and were referred to doctors across the world.
What's the doctor tell them?
What did the doctor tell them? Probably put ice on it, put heat on it, or go and sit in a bath for a period of time.
They say don't do anything. Stop training
rest.
immediately.
I hate that
Rest.
one. I hate that one. Horrendous. We had Adam on here, who's a physiotherapist training osteopath, and he even says motion is lotion. It really is. Like, if I sat, I had a week off training at one point in time, but if I sat and just wallowed in self-pity, essentially, is what you're doing at that point in time, you will find that you'll become stiffer than ever and the pain will get worse because your body needs movement to be able to produce what we call synovial fluid, which helps with overall basically greasing of the joints is the best way to think about it, and that overall is going to benefit your movement.
Welcome back to the Perform Well podcast. This is the podcast for you if you're looking for performance and wellness optimization so that you can not only smash your career but also have a better life, better relationships and better health. We believe that performance and wellness are yin and yang and work together. So listen in as we dive into topics that are going to help you optimize your life for the better. Hello. So, welcome back again to another podcast. Absolutely lovely to see you here, guys, and yourself, Dan. Today we're going to talk about beating back pain and sciatica. And I mean, I personally have only had a very mild case of sciatica. I'm not sure about you, Dan. I know you've had a few back problems in the past.
Well, I think a lot of people, if you're watching this from my socials, you'll know that I have suffered from it quite severely in the last couple of years. And we're going to share a little bit of insight to my story, how I managed to battle it back and become pain-free within like 5-6 months, and also some extending tips that are really going to help you guys out if you are suffering from it now, because it is a chronic condition. It's horrible to deal with. And I feel like everyone doesn't feel like there's light at the end of the tunnel, but we're hopefully going to shed some light on the situation to make your life a bit easier and obviously understand what you're going through at this point in time.
Yeah, and on top of that, guys, like if you are experiencing pain and you experience some sciatica, just realize that sometimes, or most of the time, should I say, it's not actually anything serious. And your pain and symptoms can get better within a very short amount of time, even as short as seven days in some cases. So let's talk about it. Now, obviously, sciatica, we will just obviously briefly talk about this, Dan, but from my understanding about sciatica, there are two main reasons that you can get a, sciatic flare up, and that's potentially because of a muscle spasm. So the muscle, in theory, basically traps the nerve, causing pressure there, and you can feel the pain right either at that point where it's spasming or down the leg. And then obviously, in your case, the other alternative was the slip disc, putting pressure on the nerve.
Yeah, it was disc herniation, and I think this is one of the most common things that go on. Now, you've got a lot of stages of disc herniation, but the one that you're going to find where a lot of the symptoms flare up is when the disc bulges between the two vertebrae. Some of the most common areas that people get disc bulges and disc herniations are between your lumbar spine and your sacroiliac joint, or SI joint, as it's otherwise known as. And basically what you've got is you've got your two discs indicated by my knuckles here. You have two vertebrae indicated by my knuckles here, and you'll have a disc in the middle here. This disc will protrude because the spine's opened up, and because it protrudes, the nerve runs down here, so it pushes against it, and that's when you start to get the sharp pain right from the top of your glutes all the way down to the back of your calves. Now, it can be more severe in some cases. I've been training a client for a long time now who has she's gone through spinal fusion of two of her lumbar vertebrae. Which this is a more severe case, but a lot of you guys out there who suffer from sciatica, the best protocol as well, and I'm not sitting here saying I'm a physio, same for Nick, but make sure you go seek some help to start with and get a diagnosis before you start pointing fingers of what it could be, because until you definitively know what is causing the symptoms, please try and figure out where it's stemming from first, because if it's higher up in the spine, then more than likely you might have to do slightly different suggestions from what we're going to give here, but always go and seek medical health help to start with, whether that's through the NHS or privately.
Do you know what? I've actually got a really good, is it acronym? No, what's it called? Analogy. I've got a really good analogy when I was working for Tesco warehouse. When COVID happened, I basically lost all my clients overnight, which was a terrible time for a lot of people. Worked in Tesco warehouse for a little bit, and they were teaching us manual lifting techniques, which is quite ironic because obviously I can lift more than most people there. But anyway, the fact is they said that your vertebrae are like two things like this, two knuckles, for example, and in between is a jam donut. And if you put pressure on the jam donut with an even amount of pressure, the jam donut stays relatively the same. If you turn one side slightly, the jam squirts out. And it's a very interesting way to describe what's happening with that disc. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to sciatica, the main thing is it can be cured. All right. Now, I do have some sports massage experience when it comes to therapy side of things, but when it comes to sciatica, this is where the limit of a level 3 sports massage therapist sort of dissipates. I did have a client about, God, what was it, 12 years ago now? Crazy, man, 12 years ago. And I know, mate, I'll tell you something, off topic, Skyfall, James Bond film, came out 12 years ago.
Bloody hell.
When I started uni, or left uni.
Oh my God.
Crazy. Anyway, so that side note. Basically, I was massaging his client 12 years ago. He had sciatica. His particular area of pain was his glutes and running down his leg, down his hamstring. So in his case, it wasn't necessarily the vertebrae that were causing the problem. And the reason for that is because once we started getting into his glutes and massaging them, we found that his pain subsided, especially during the acute stage of massage. So basically at the beginning. But then the pain kept coming back. And then we realized, soon after, there's a reason why the glutes are spasming because, one side is overloaded, taking the weight of the other leg. So now you get into this kind of picture, it's like we can cure the problem straight away, but there's often other things that are causing the problem. And so, if you're feeling pain in the short term, there are ways to get relief in the short term, but you should always have a long-term approach to fix it so it doesn't come back.
Yeah, and I agree with that because there's a lot of people I've conversated with recently. Again, I've been through it myself and understand the more emotional side of it. It is soul destroying to experience like really severe sciatica day to day. It impacts your day to day life. You're panicking about how to stand up out of a chair. Standing up out of a car is one of the hardest tasks you'll have throughout the day. When you're trying to do a leg extension, I was speaking to a girl the other day and it's so weird, and I think I showed you a video of me doing it. I was doing a leg extension with the lowest weight possible, and as I tried to bend through my knee, because I'm flexing at the hip and then I'm putting pressure through my spine, my leg just starts to vibrate with like 9 kilos on the weight. Bearing in mind I used to do like 90 on the leg extension, and it's just bewildering how that can have effects on the body. Now, you spoke about manual handling there, and I actually want to just talk about that because I think manual handling has started to actually increase the amount of disc bulges and disc herniations that we're getting. Now, the reason I say that is because we've been taught for years to lift with a neutral spine. However, the spine has more than one function than to hold stability. We can flex forward, we can extend, we can laterally flex, we can rotate. There's a lot of things we can do with the spine. But when we talk about manual handling for years has been said, we need an upright spine and we need to be dropping down in our knees. Now, not a lot of people have that mobility. I've got a client who for years deadlifts with a rounded spine, but he holds his spine in that position and still works with his hips. So technically, he's still lifting with correct technique because he's strong in that position. And actually, he's built up a lot of spinal strength to help with the resilience of that over time. Now, from that perspective, does that mean that we should start looking at more rounded spine work for people?
I mean, do you know what I was going to say? Like, there's power lifters out there that have the most horrendous back when it comes to lifting squats and deadlifts, yet they lift some of the heaviest weights in the world. And it works for them. Do you know what I mean? But then I've also seen people with straight spines do the same thing. So I think the overall question is, do you strengthen your back? Because a lot of people think that because you get back pain, you should avoid training the back. Whereas sometimes, or most cases that I found, is that you should train the back, get it as strong as possible in all of the ranges that it can, do. And then it shouldn't have these problems that we're experiencing. Like a good example is not good morning. What's the one?
Good morning. The goodness morning.
No. What's the one where you bend the spine purposefully on the way down?
You want about a Jefferson curl?
Jefferson curl, yeah. So for anyone that doesn't know what that is, you can search it up. But basically, you stand up straight, shoulder width apart, your feet, and then you bend your spine downwards, but you on purposely curl over as if you're hunching your back. And the purpose of that is to strengthen your spine along every single inch and millimeter of the actual spine itself by bringing yourself back up. You don't have to lift heavy with it, but doing that movement on itself can make a huge impact.
Yeah.
Most people's backs are weak, and that's why they're getting problems. You know,
Mm.
now I say it 9 times out of 10, guys. Obviously, there's a few of you out there that it won't be the case, but for the majority of you, it is.
Apologies for interrupting the podcast. We know you're getting fully engrossed into this episode, and we really appreciate you stopping on the video on YouTube or on Spotify if you found us through one of the search pages. Make sure to leave a review and a subscription if you haven't already. But we just wanted to interject a point here that me and Nick have 15 years of coaching experience between us, and it's only getting better as we've got better guests on the podcast. The only way we can do that, though, is with the growth of our program that we've just released. We've got a 12-month Perform Well program, which has just dropped, and we'd love you guys to get involved in it. If you want to learn more details, make sure to head to the description, as we've got our website in there, which can give you a full overlay of the program. We're looking to help career-driven professionals, entrepreneurs, small business owners, and anyone dominate their life by improving their lifestyle. Me and Nick like to claim ourselves as experts in this area, and if you want to check out some of our other transformations, I'm sure you do. We've got some amazing people who have performed so well off the back of this program. Have a cracking day, and we really appreciate your time. Let's get back to the podcast. Well, interestingly, talking about lower back pain, I just want to come in with a statistic. In 2020, it was said that across the world, 619 million people experienced lower back pain and were referred to a doctors across the world.
And what's the doctor tell them?
What did the doctor tell them? Probably put ice on it, put heat on it, or go and sit in a bar for a period of time.
They say, don't do anything. Stop training
rest.
immediately.
I hate that
Rest.
one. I hate that one. Horrendous. We had Adam on here, who's a physiotherapist training osteopath, and he even says motion is lotion. It really is. Like, if I sat, I had a week off training at one point in time, but if I sat and just wallowed in self-pity, essentially, is what you're doing at that point in time, you will find that you will become stiffer than ever, and the pain will get worse, because your body needs movement to be able to produce what we call synovial fluid, which helps with overall, basically greasing of the joints is the best way to think about it. And that overall is going to benefit your movement. If you have a damaged spine, and then you have tight hips, and then you have tight knees, and then tight ankles, guess what? It's going to hurt a lot more.
You're going to be
because
tight.
You haven't got the movement. You're going to be damn tight because you need to have the movement around those areas. Now, Nick addressed an exercise there, which is fantastic, is a Jefferson curl. The second exercise, which I'm going to suggest to you guys, is called a seated good morning. And what we're looking to do here is flex through the lumbar part of the spine. You can look it up on YouTube. There's loads of videos out there. Or if you want a YouTube video, then message me on Insta. I've got one for a tutorial. That exercise looks to strengthen the lower spine. The problem is, and actually I want to put a caveat on all this training topics that we're talking about, people can go too hard with training. And that is the alternative. Yes, we want to strengthen it, but you need to take it slowly. Now, I don't know about you, Nick, but when you've picked up injuries in the past, it's not a case of going back to what you were doing before, is it?
No, I'll tell you something, mate. When I was 15, that was when my life turned into the physical side of things. Because I wanted to join the Marines and wanted to join the Army and do the SES and all that stuff, I had a reason to train really hard. And so I trained basically most days at that age. And fortunately, I got injured a lot. And the reason why I say fortunately is because I learned that injuries do not have to stop you from progressing towards your goals. Yeah, okay, I got shin splints when I first started running. I can't obviously run as well as I could before, but then I learned how to fix the shin splints, and then realized that actually all I needed to do was give it a bit more time and be more patient. So it taught me patience. I had plantar fasciitis in the feet, which, have you had that before?
I've got it now.
Mate, plantar fasciitis, it feels like you've got a loose rubber band underneath your foot, and it's just painful when you put pressure on it. And I learned by getting a tennis ball, rolling my foot over the tennis ball, the pain would start to go away. So there you go, Dan. There's an option for you. Also, going into tiptoes will help. I had back pain. When I got to 15, went through a growth spurt. I was playing rugby at the time, and then because I went through a growth spurt, I basically injured my back, and I had to go to physio. And I learned that actually doing stuff about it helps it rather than resting. So I hate it when doctors say rest. Like, I honestly think it's probably the worst thing you can do. It doesn't mean you go to the exercise that caused the injury and you go fucking ham on it. It means you take it back a bit, maybe back to level 1. You know, let's say you're doing 100 kilo good mornings. You take it back to body weight good mornings, and you practice the movement. You see where the pain is throughout the movement, and maybe you take a bit more time around that point. You know, nice and gently. You don't put too much pressure on it. For those out there that are, you know, big powerlifters, bodybuilders that might be listening, then obviously you guys are the worst for it, because you are the ones that want to go straight back to heavy lifting. you're going to have to just take it back a little bit.
See, it is key that you've made that point there, because there's a lot of information out there regarding sciatica now and how you can improve it. And the amount of people that I have come to me talking about this is astounding. But there is a lot of also bullshit in terms of advice that I want to just kind of clarify. Now, this is from Scott University that I saw a little while ago. And it was basically saying that if people have sciatica or some kind of like, well, it's sciatica. It is just fundamentally sciatica is what he's explaining. He was saying to do a bar hang, so where you just hang from a bar and it causes your spine to decompress. Now, when you're suffering with any kind of herniation in the lumbar spine, into your SI joint, normally that decompression is a bad thing because it just allows the bulge to kind of peek out a little bit more. Like Nick said with a jam donut, you just get a little bit more of that filling coming out and hitting your sciatic nerve. So you'll actually find it aggravates it quite a lot. But he said and stated that it was a good exercise to do at the time. And this is the thing, when we start toying around with these key bits of information, motion is great. I would argue that any kind of static work is not actually beneficial when it comes to disc bulges, sciatica, that side of things, because we need some kind of movement, but we need structured movement that's going to allow you to progress.
Caveat to that, mate. What about the plank?
Plank, well, I can't do, still to this day, I cannot do an elbow plank very well.
Really?
Yes, because when I go into a plank position, how I see it is my spinal column shunts together. So that kind of pressure causes discomfort for me. Side plank's fine. Bird dog's fine. McGill curl up, fine. But doing a plank caused aggravation for me. And this is the thing with sciatic symptoms. These things can have different factors. And the core is great because Nick will explain this in more detail. But having a strong core and a strong lower back, I like to say you create a sandwich, like a strength sandwich. And if you create that strength sandwich on your spine, any kind of movement around that is going to be so much easier to do and so much more comfortable, where you'll start to feel that the pain will subside. And one little thing I want to add in there is if you are experiencing flare-ups, yes, a lot of us talk about being pain-free because we are pain-free at the end of the day. We're not to that degree of pain that we had before, but you are likely still going to have flare-ups throughout your life with these kind of things. But the thing you're trying to do is moderate how much that flare-up impacts your life.
Do you know what? I've always found over the years of my own injuries, other people's injuries, and what I've learned in sports massage therapy as well, is that if you strengthen the core, and I don't mean just the abs, I mean the core is the back, the actual abs themselves, like being able to brace through the core rather than crunch through it, and activate the glutes well, 9 times out of 10 your back and knee problems go. Most knee and back problems are because we have a weak core and a weak glute causing our hip to not take as much of the stress as it should do. And then it shifts it into the knee, shifts it into the back muscles. And so, guys, if you're listening to this, you've got back pain and you're not training your core properly, and I don't mean crunches, although it is good, I mean bracing it through plank holds, hollow holds, even toe to bar exercise where you actually have to brace your core to be able to lift it up, and training your glutes with hip thrusts and stuff like that, then try those as well. You might find that it shifts some of the attention away from your back so you can recover.
It will also be, on the topic of that, on the other side of that, think about your hip flexors. The hips play such a predominant role in a lot of injuries. And I always like to say they're almost the epicenter of problems, because the hips and the shoulders, and again, Nick's sports massage side, he knows this very well. Both of those joints are used so much. They have so much function. The most mobile joint in the body is actually the shoulder joint. But you've got to think both those joints have so many different ranges of motion and so many different muscles that interconnect like a spider web in there. If we don't look at strengthening the hips, we won't look at strengthening the back. Because at that point in time, we need to create that almost pillow or mattress with the hips where you start to strengthen your adductors, your abductors, your glute med. You look at strengthening the hip flexors, all 4 of them. You try and target exercises that do it. Like the third exercise I'm going to throw in the mixture is a cable single leg hip flexor strengthening exercise. Very long-winded. But you lay supine on the floor and you just pull a cable back, bending at the knee. It's comfortable, it's supported, it's stable. And it's one of those things that my hips feel stronger than ever. And fundamentally, I do seated good mornings and hip flexor strengthening with every single client. Because I would love to say that because of how sedentary our society is these days, we have seen a massive increase in back pain because people aren't goddamn moving their hips.
Dan, I'm just gonna share my screen real quick. I've got something to show you. This for those watching, mate. This is a banger. It's not a gorilla, don't worry. Right, so this thing right here, this diagram, right? That can you see this by the way, Dan?
I can see it. Yeah.
Perfect. This actually really nails it in terms of when you talk about the hip flexor. So erector spinae, this is the lower back muscle. So this is the back area here. Then we've got the iliopsoas, which is the hip flexor on the front. And the iliopsoas actually pulls the pelvis downwards, so as in forwards and down, which actually allows the spine to then shorten. So when we get the hip flexor tight, which is the opposite way of this is going right now, so let's imagine that this anterior tilt goes backwards, we're now stretching the spine. So when we get a tight hip flexor, then our spine is actually also being tight. And so fixing one can also fix the other. And this is also true of the core and the glute muscles. So this actually goes into what I was saying about core and glutes. The core muscle on the front here will push the tilt of the pelvis backwards, and the glutes will also assist with that movement as well. So it's quite interesting. Have you seen this before?
I have seen that before. Yeah, it's a good diagram as well. It's very well explained.
Very
well explained. But yeah, guys, there comes some of the key take homes for people who are sitting at home. They're sitting there on their chair right now and they're like, I don't want to stand up because I know I'm going to get sciatica, or they don't want to wake up in the morning because they've got such severe back pain and know standing up in the morning is the hardest thing to do. What key takeaway bit of advice would you give to those people?
Sorry, repeat that last bit again, sorry.
So for anyone out there who's listening to this right now, they're sat down, they've got sciatica, they've got back pain, they're struggling, and they just don't really know a way out, but they're worried about standing up, you know, they don't want to get up out of a car, they can't do activities with their friends and family. What would be your one tip to start them on the road to recovery?
I mean, look, if they're listening to this right now, the best thing they could do is go onto Instagram, find coach.dang.king, get bit by Nick, or Perform Well Podcast, and just ask us, and we'll send you some information over, because like, you don't have to do it on your own. And I think, you know, regardless of what we say today, you're still going to have belief that something with your situation is different to everyone else's. And it might be. It might even be, you know, unique. But get in touch with someone that is professional. You know, we're happy to obviously lead you in the right direction anyway. So you're welcome to message us. We'll help you out as best as we can. If it requires a physio or someone at a higher level, we can send you to them. No, we'll give you the right.
We've got a lot of good people. And Nick, key point there, as he said, support. Like, that is the one thing that I was lacking. I feel like I was lacking the support. And I actually recently signed up a guy to come into our Perform Well program recently, who just, me and him started talking because he messaged me from TikTok. And he was like, dude, like, I'm really struggling. Your position sounds the same as mine. And we were just backwards and forwards for a couple of months talking about his injury, how it felt. And I was like, dude, I relate. I know the pain. Having someone there that you can relate to or can at least chat to about these things is one of the best remedies you're ever going to have, hands down. But what we want to do now, we'll wrap up. We appreciate everyone watching. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. If you found it useful, make sure to drop us a like. And we're nearly at 100 subs. So if we can get to 100 subs by the end of the year, that would be so amazing. So amazing. And if you've got anyone out there who struggles with sciatica, got back pain, got neck pain, that kind of stuff, send them this video. Get them the help they need. Get them on the process. We want to help people out. That's why we do what we do. But yeah, make sure to also drop us a follow over on the old Spotify, and obviously all of our socials are in the description, so come check us out and get some free resources too.
Legend. Ciao, ciao.
Catch you later.